So we just looked at John 8, and we saw what this threefold expression of sin looked like. When Jesus is interacting with these guys. Today, here's my dinosaurs. Ann and I were on vacation, and we saw this documentary from National Geographic, and it was talking about the dinosaurs. And these paleontologists were saying that 1/3 of the dinosaur species that we've classified all these dinosaurs. 1/3 of them are not really new species at all. They're really just younger versions of other dinosaurs. So for example, right here we see 4 dinosaurs, okay? You know the rule in science, right? You discover it, you get to name it, okay? So we got the Robosaurus, we got the Anthoniosaurus, we got the Curtosaurus, and we got the Eugenosaurus, okay? And then somebody comes along and they say, now wait a minute, no, they're all Eugenosauruses. That's just a young Eugenosaurus and a younger Eugenosaurus and an even younger baby Eugenosaurus. And now Kurt and Anthony and I are all up. No, wait a minute now. There's the pride of life, okay? This guy has some really fascinating data here, but nobody's going to accept it because their names are attached to these dinosaurs, to these discoveries. Their pride keeps them from seeing what's right in front of them, what the data is saying. So people see what they want to see. People find what they're looking for. Around the world today, we have 5,000 people who make their living staring through telescopes. They study the heavens, they study the stars, and most of them are theists, meaning they believe in the God who interacts personally. Deism is the idea that there's a God and he set things in motion and he let it all go. But theism is that the God interacts personally with us. And this is the God of the Bible. This is the Yahweh. He interacts with us personally. There's special revelation. There's an ongoing relationship. Most astronomers are theists. Remember, 5,000 of them around the world. Most of them are theists. They look up into the skies. Last time I talked to you about the privileged planet. Here were a couple of astronomers that started with the assumption that life must exist on other planets because that's what we all believe. And I'll get to that in a second. That's the evolutionist point of view. So therefore, let's go out there and let's study everything. And his conclusion is, through his research, through following the breadcrumbs along, he comes to the conclusion Earth is unique. Scientifically, Earth is unique for supporting complex life. So it is highly unlikely, if not impossible, that life exists somewhere else in the universe because Earth is in the single best possible place for life. The universe is an extremely hostile place. Biologists, on the other hand, they come at this from a very naturalistic point of view. They're looking for, when they're studying things, they're looking for a validation of what they already believe. They're going to find what they're looking for. This brings up a very interesting difference between the idea of data versus evidence. Okay, let me illustrate this for you. A scientist he's experimenting. He's taught a frog how to jump on command. Okay, so you can imagine the scientist standing there in his white lab coat, and he's got a frog there on the table, and he says to the frog, "Jump." And the frog jumps off the table. So he writes down in his little notebook, the frog jumps. He cuts off one of the frog's legs. He says, "Jump." The frog jumps. So he writes down his observations in his notebook like any good scientist would. So he's recorded his data. He cuts off another leg. Now the frog has 2 legs left. He says, "Jump," and the frog jumps. He writes it down again. He cuts off the 3rd leg. This frog's got 1 leg left. He says, "Jump," and the frog somehow manages to get his little body with 1 leg up off the ground. He writes it down in his notebook. He cuts off the last leg of the frog. He says, "Jump," and the frog just stares at him. "Jump, frog, jump." The frog just stares at him. So he goes back to his notebook and he says, when you cut off all 4 legs of a frog, he promptly becomes deaf. But you see the difference here. He's misinterpreted the data because he wants to prove himself right. See, he has this idea in his head that somehow a frog's hearing is connected to his legs. And he's trying to prove something. He's trying to prove that he's right. So he's trying to find what he's looking for. People believe what they want to believe. Now we'll get into the evolution bit. Evolution, textbook definition. Evolution, the common descent of all life on Earth from a single ancestor via undirected mutation and natural selection. What that means is that you and I and every other creature on this planet, whether it's an amoeba or a frog or a zebra or a human being, we all came from the same thing. It was a single cell organism. You guys know what a cell is? Like the smallest part of your body, a cell's got a nucleus, and take you back to biology class for a second. A cell's got a nucleus, it's got, some things going on inside of it, and you're made up of hundreds of thousands and millions of cells in your body, and each day your cells die. That's why your skin flakes, that's why, So what they're saying is that we evolved, that all life on this planet evolved from one single cell that came about, we don't know how, but that's not important. But we don't know how life actually started, but we all know we came from a single cell. The reason why we're talking about this today on Valentine's Day, the second weekend of February for the last 5 years has been deemed Evolution Weekend. Okay, last year, 1,000 churches preached that evolution was the truth in this country and around the world. 15 countries around the world, every state in our union, they preached that evolution is the truth. But the goal, the interesting thing, and I'm quoting from the website now, he says the goal of this is to demonstrate that religious people from many faiths and locations understand that evolution is sound science and poses no problems for their faith. Now, to me, it sounds like people believing what they want to believe. Now, I say it's not sound science, and so do a lot of other people, a lot smarter than me, with a lot more credentials than me, so I'm just going to tell you what they say, and poses no problems to your faith. Well, we'll see about that. The world's most famous atheist, his name is Richard Dawkins. Have you guys heard of him? I had never heard of him before, maybe a year and a half ago. Time magazine calls him one of the most 100 most influential people in the world. He's the mouthpiece of secular humanism. Secular meaning apart from God. Humanism meaning concentrating on the human standing alone. Naturalism. This is basically the evolutionist mindset that we don't need God. There is no God. We don't want to worry about God. We did it all ourselves. We all came about without God. His latest book is called The Greatest Show on Earth, The Evidence for Evolution. Now, as a scientist, I'm looking at this, I'm like, I've got to read this book. I cannot preach to you about this topic without reading this book. Okay, so I've never read any of his books. He's got lots of books out there, but he himself has said that this is the book for evolution, the evidence for evolution. All the rest of them were just talking, assuming evolution was true. Now he's presenting the evidence. I checked out the book from the library because I certainly was not going to financially contribute to his way of life. The first thing I noticed in his book, well, by the time I got to the end of it, I guess the last thing I noticed in the book is that he doesn't talk about the universe at all.